When it comes to the high-stakes business of gold mining, loud voices usually get the most attention, but sometimes it's the quiet ones that steal the show. Individuals who ought to be observing gold seems to run in the Beets family, and Mike Beets is no exception. Tony, who has a gravelly voice and a net worth of $15 million, used iron will and determination to carve himself an empire in the Klondike. Are his offspring going to? After he stomped his muddy feet, Monica and Kevin followed suit, becoming famous in the gold game. Then there came as the world beheld Tony and his heirs command the Yukon. Mikey remained silent, his hands filthy, and his machinery in motion, rather than yelling commands or chasing after camera time. Starting when he was 13 years old, Mike painstakingly constructed something else, and his family was left in tears when he eventually presented his creation. Prior to being able to use a motor vehicle, Mike spent his mornings in the trenches operating heavy machinery in sub-zero temperatures. He oversaw the operation of 40-ton and crane machines for a long time. Massive wash plants and monster trucks. I believe we eventually reached pay since he was more than just an operator of the equipment. So that's a plus. Wow, it really did take a long time. I mean, look at all that yellow stuff. It's definitely paying off. Yes, that is excellent material. The sound it makes when dropped to the click is quite pleasant. Get the rocks cooked. What a wonderful sound. Sure, no problem at all. Despite his pivotal role in the Beets operations, his wealth betrayed him. $200,000, there you have it. It's a stark contrast to the millions enjoyed by his father and siblings. The reason being that Mike wasn't in a position of authority since he wasn't an owner. Still, he never once complained, ceased, or settled, and he kept the gold coming in even if he wasn't collecting the bounty. The $300,000 wash plant, the Kiwi, was to be transported from Paradise Hill to Dominion Creek, but the otherwise mundane transport assignment swiftly became a watershed moment in Mike Beets' mining career. Without hesitation, Mike seized the lead. The task was meant to be straightforward, but in the world of gold mining, nothing is ever straightforward. Midway through the voyage, disaster struck when one of the enormous chains holding the plant unexpectedly cracked. The 25-ton apparatus tipped off the trailer in an instant, sending shudders through the air as it slammed into the gravel below. Throughout the valley, the deafening scream of metal could be heard. Worst nightmare ever for the crew. The wash plant, which was now half submerged and might be destroyed. Mr. Tony, my expectations were not met by this. You can see that a chain snapped off, and fell off on the upper side. Just go ahead and solve that one, all right? Wow, that's crazy. It didn't appear to cause much harm, actually. Production of gold would be halted in the absence of a wash facility that is operational. Plus, the season and their income were in jeopardy without gold. Not only was the machine malfunctioning, the entire operation hinged on this one crucial moment. Tony Beets wasted no time coordinating a rescue operation, bringing in 2 enormous front-end loaders. However, Mike refused to back down, climbed onto the loader, and regained command of the situation. With remarkable concentration and command, Mike oversaw the rescue operations. This wasn't merely about correcting an error, it was about demonstrating his true mettle. He carefully maneuvered the enormous piece of machinery back onto its foundation. No space was spared. It only took one careless action to do irreparable harm. The crew succeeded nonetheless, thanks to Mike's direction. It was that day that the crew began to see Mike for more than just the man behind the wheel. The Kiwi, though upright and dented but unbroken, salvaged the season. A leader who didn't give in or wilt when things got tough was what they witnessed. Mike Beets emerged from the shadows and assumed his own identity at that same moment. Most people would be surprised to know that Mike Beets has a secret side. When he's not navigating the treacherous Yukon landscape or pulling heavy machinery up steep slopes, he leads a second life beneath the fuel, grime, and grind of gold mining, one that appears to have been plucked from a medieval story. Clad in chainmail, he raises a shield and clutches a steel sword. It is a genuine sword. Mike trains and fights in tournaments all throughout Canada as a full-contact medieval combat warrior, taking on the role of a legendary warrior from bygone eras as a lesser soldier trudging through snow and steel. The armor is heavy, the impacts are real, and the stakes are just as high, though they aren't in money. He transforms into a medieval-era charging knight as the sun goes down. I'm keeping an eye on the beer and the conveyor to see if anything big is going to fall out of the hole. The operator is supposed to keep an eye on them, but sometimes she misses because they are literally just frozen bits of money. It's a strange contrast, but when you look closer, the connection becomes clear. How ridiculously difficult is it to discern the difference? In all realms, one must possess grit, strength, strategy, and perseverance. Mike consistently demonstrates his battle prowess in both, and his unwavering composure was tested once again. Rather than a stadium, a mountainside, taken place atop Hunker Summit, a prominent mountain in the riskiest sections of mining route. Crawling uphill in the Klondike, Mike was pulling a semi-truck loaded of cargo. He was trailing thousands of pounds, and the weather was anything but dependable. Damp gravel areas make the road hazardously slippery. The vehicle suddenly lost traction. The huge raid started sliding sideways slowly at first as the tires spun and gravity took control. Then, with frightening momentum, the edge of the mountain drew closer. With each passing second, the entire truck, trailer, and load could have fallen into the valley below. Mike, though, remained composed as he balanced the wheel, maintained his concentration, and radioed for assistance. In response, Kevin Beets showed up in a flash with a second car and a thick industrial chain. The vehicle was steadily dragged back from the edge as the two guys coordinated their efforts to anchor it. Yet another tragedy was averted, and yet another unheralded triumph was achieved. However, it is in these kinds of situations that Mike Beets' true character emerges. He is more than a fighter or a miner. He is the man who, for the most part of his life, confronts chaos head-on and refuses to let it triumph. As Kevin assumed leadership roles, overseeing teams and making important judgments, and Monica oversaw gold cleanup and crucial decisions, Mike worked quietly in the background where no one ever bothered to look. To keep the whole operation running well, Mike remained on the ground. Since we've all been in this together for a while and have assigned certain tasks to each other, we're all on the same page when it comes to how the Beets family does things. Doing things this way is far more convenient than teaching a large number of new employees to do it that way. Whatever you say about him, he was the driving force behind Paradise Hill's survival. Mike, the man who always seemed to be in the thick of things, was the one who got the call when things didn't work, stalled, or broke. But when the cameras were rolling or the promos were airing, his name was rarely front and center. He wasn't cast as the family face, the mogul, or the star. There were no interviews that showed his plans or close-ups that captured his reactions. But that never bothered him. In a world full of noise, he chose to be the one thing the Beets mining empire couldn't survive without: reliable. Mike stepped back just a little as the dust settled, but what he left behind was everything but anticipated. Neither gold bars nor a dazzling commercial deal were involved. Not even in terms of dollars or ounces could you put a price on it. The evidence he left behind proved he was more than simply an operator, a machine handler, or a reliable second. Under Mike's watchful eye, Paradise Hill has been subtly but surely altered. He had introduced more intelligent systems, improved the site with little but significant changes, and reorganized the workflow. Credit was not sought for, and no announcements were made. Avoid promoting oneself just by being there, he improved the operation. Finally pausing to observe what Mike had done, Tony Beets, the guy who built an empire from the frozen dirt of the Klondike. There are no big speeches or outbursts, just a long, steady look followed by a nod. I should have welded better on that final guy, but I assume he's dead, so there's no need in complaining. The moment was silent, and the father and son realized that the torch wasn't being taken. Mike never sought fame. He never wanted more of anything. He simply kept turning up and proving himself, and now he's finally getting his due. His influence is evident regardless of whether the cameras are rolling. With his mastery of technology, he preserved seasons. With cool precision, he had handled crises, and he had ushered in a new age for the family firm according to his own terms. Not only did he move the needle, but he also moved the gold. No one, not even Mike Beets, can say for sure when it comes to the future of the band. After all, Mike has spent his entire life on the move. We can only control our own destinies by making choices today, but here's what we do know: he will not hesitate. He will be prepared for that moment when it comes. The world was fixated on Tony's thunderous voice, Monica's ascent through the ranks, and Kevin's fight for independence, but Mike was subtly becoming the most integral component of the whole Beets legacy. The unsung hero who powers the machinery. This success story's unsung hero is Surprising Evening Underground.